A brand new luxury car loses more money in 5 years than most people make in a year. 40% gone, sometimes 60%. On some of them, more than $60,000 vanishes before the loan is even paid off. Now here's the part that flips your brain. While the new stuff hemorrhages cash, a handful of old luxury cars are going the other way, holding and even climbing. That's the whole video. 5 old luxury cars that make brand new ones look like a genuinely terrible investment. Not just older, smarter. Let me show you exactly why. First, why old beats new on paper. Depreciation is the single largest cost of owning a new car. Bigger than fuel, bigger than insurance, bigger than repairs, often bigger than all of them combined over the first few years. It is a silent expense nobody puts on the window sticker, and on a luxury car, it is brutal. Because the things that make a new luxury car special, the cutting-edge tech, the huge options list, the badge premium, are exactly the things the used market stops paying for the moment a newer model appears. A well-chosen old luxury car has already survived that entire process. The steep part of the curve, that violent first stretch where a new car can lose a fifth of its value in 12 months and half of it in 5 years, happened to someone else years ago, and that stranger ate the entire loss for you. What is left is a car that has found its real, permanent value, and if it is desirable enough, that value only goes up as the survivors get rarer. You are not fighting depreciation anymore. You have flipped to the other side of the equation entirely. And notice what these cars are not. They are not fragile, unusable investments locked in a climate-controlled vault. Every one of them can be driven, enjoyed, and shown off, which means you get the use of a luxury car and the trajectory of an asset at the same time. That is the trick the showroom can never match. Here are 5 cars that prove the point, and each one proves it a different way. The Mercedes-Benz SL R107, 1972 to 1989. Start with the car that quietly turned into one of the smartest entry points in all of classic car collecting. For years, the R107 SL was almost disposable, an old Mercedes convertible you could pick up for the price of a used economy car. Then the market woke up. Because Mercedes built this generation for a remarkable 18 years and over 300,000 of them, there are enough survivors that you can still find one, but the good ones have steadily, relentlessly climbed. A clean, documented R107 today is worth meaningfully more than it was a decade ago, and the trend has only pointed one direction, because the market finally understood what it was looking at. A hand-built, over-engineered Mercedes convertible from the brand's golden era, in limited and shrinking supply of good examples. Think about what that means next to a new car. Park a pristine R107 next to a brand new luxury convertible. In 5 years, the new one will have surrendered half its value like clockwork. The Mercedes, if you simply maintain it, will very likely be worth the same or more than you paid. One is a liability with a cup holder, guaranteed to be worth less at every sunrise. The other is a rolling asset you happen to enjoy on Sunday mornings, guaranteed by history to be wanted long after the new convertible has been forgotten. Same driveway, same money spent, opposite financial universes. And it is not fragile collector jewelry. The R107 was engineered like a bank vault during the era Mercedes spent whatever it took to be the best in the world. There is a specific mechanic here worth understanding, because it is why the R107 is such a smart first move. High production means the parts and specialist knowledge to keep one alive are still everywhere, so ownership is far cheaper and less scary than people assume. You are not chasing unobtainium for a car that only sits in a museum, yet the desirable versions are still climbing, which is the collector's dream scenario, an appreciating asset that is also cheap to run and easy to live with. Buy the right one, rust-free, documented, the sought-after later 560 SL especially, and you own a genuine appreciating classic that also happens to be usable, comfortable, and unmistakably elegant. That combination, appreciation, usability, and affordability at once, is exactly what the depreciating new convertible in the showroom can never offer, no matter how many screens or driver aids it piles on. The Jaguar XJS, 1975 to 1996. Now the car that, for a long time, was the cheapest ticket into a rising market, and the window on that is closing. The XJS spent decades as the bargain basement classic Jaguar, dismissed and undervalued, which is precisely why it is such an interesting financial story today. As the truly expensive Jaguars, the E-types of the world, climbed out of reach, buyers looking for that same long hood, grand touring British glamour turned to the car that offered it for a fraction of the money. Demand followed the money down, and the best XJS coupes, especially especially the smooth, silken V12 cars and the cleaner, later facelift models, have been quietly appreciating from the bottom up, exactly the pattern you want to catch early. When the expensive version of a thing becomes untouchable, the affordable version that delivers the same feeling is next in line to climb. Here is the contrast that matters. A new entry luxury coupe will lose more in its first 2 years than a good XJS costs in total. You could buy the entire Jaguar outright with the money a new car owner simply hands to depreciation while still making monthly payments on a car that is worth less every single day. Read that again because it is the whole thesis of this video in one sentence. The loss on the new car can exceed the total price of the appreciating classic, and at the end of that stretch, the new car is still falling and the Jaguar, bought right, has held its ground or gained. One owner is down tens of thousands, the other is even or ahead. The catch, and it is the whole game with this car, is condition. A cheap, neglected XJS is a money pit. A properly sorted, well-documented one is an appreciating asset. The gap between those two is enormous, which is exactly why the good ones are the ones going up. As the rough cars get scrapped, the survivors get rarer and more valuable every year. This is the quiet engine under every appreciating classic: attrition. Every year, neglected examples die and are parted out. The total pool shrinks, and the good remaining cars are worth more simply because fewer exist. A new car does the reverse. The factory keeps building them, the used market floods with lease returns, and supply crushes value. The XJS is a case study in the difference between a shrinking supply of a desirable thing and an endless supply of a depreciating one. The Lincoln Continental Contra's Suicide Door, 1961 to 1969. Some cars are transportation. This one is a piece of American design history that happens to have wheels. The fourth-generation Continental, with its rear-hinged suicide doors and its clean, slab-sided, impossibly cool silhouette, is one of the most instantly recognizable American luxury cars ever built. It is the car of a specific, glamorous, unrepeatable moment in early 1960s America, the era of tailored suits, jet travel, and effortless confidence. And that cultural weight is exactly what gives it lasting, appreciating value. It was also famously expensive and exclusive when new, built to a standard that makes modern cost-cutting look cynical by comparison. You cannot manufacture that kind of icon status, and you certainly cannot option it onto a new car. It can only be earned over decades. That is why it behaves nothing like a modern luxury sedan. A new flagship sedan is a depreciating appliance the instant it is titled. Large luxury sedans are historically among the fastest-falling cars on the market. The Suicide Door Continental went the other way entirely. Clean, correct examples have become genuine collector pieces, sought after by people who understand that design icons do not follow the normal depreciation rules. They follow scarcity and desire, and both of those only grow. Buy a solid, rust-free, complete one, and you are not buying a used car. There is a reason design icon cars behave like art rather than appliances. Their value is anchored to something a spreadsheet cannot depreciate: cultural memory, styling that defined an era, an emotional pull that new buyers rediscover generation after generation. A new luxury sedan is engineered to feel current, which guarantees it will feel dated in a few short years and lose value accordingly. The Suicide Door Continental was never trying to be current. It was trying to be timeless, and it succeeded, which is exactly why the market keeps paying more for it. You are buying a blue-chip slice of American cool that turns heads at every stop, and unlike anything in a showroom, is more likely to reward you than punish you for owning it. The Range Rover Classic, 1970 to 1996. Here is a lesson in what happens when a car does not just enter a category, but invents one. Before the Range Rover Classic, luxury and off-road did not belong in the same sentence. It single-handedly created the luxury SUV, the single most profitable and popular vehicle category on the entire planet today. And being the genuine, first-of-its-kind original is a kind of value that simply cannot be replicated or remanufactured. Every six-figure luxury SUV rolling off an assembly line right now, every Cayenne, every Bentayga, every Urus is, in a sense, a descendant of this boxy British icon. The market has finally recognized that, and clean early classics, especially the rare two-door models, have climbed into serious collector territory. Set that against the new luxury SUV it inspired. That new one will be worth a fraction of its sticker in 5 years. Luxury SUVs and their heavy technology depreciate hard and fast. The Range Rover Classic, the founder of the entire idea, is worth more now than it was years ago, precisely because it is finite, historic, and irreplaceable. You can build a faster, plusher, more capable luxury SUV, but you can never build the first one again. Originality is a value the assembly line cannot print. There is an honest warning attached, and it is the reason values split so sharply. These can be needy, and a neglected one will drain you, so the money is only in the genuinely good ones, solid, unmodified, documented examples with sorted mechanicals. The scarcity story here is especially sharp. These were working luxury vehicles, used hard, rusted, modified, and off-roaded into oblivion for decades before anyone thought to preserve them, which means genuinely clean, original survivors are shockingly rare relative to how many were built. Rarity plus historical significance is the exact formula that drives serious appreciation, and the classic has both in abundance. Get a good one, and you own the birth of an entire industry, appreciating in your garage while its great-grandchildren depreciate in everyone else's driveways at 50% a lease cycle. The BMW 6 Series E24, 1976 to 1989. We finish with the enthusiast pick, because enthusiast demand is one of the most reliable engines of appreciation there is. The E24, BMW's original shark-nosed Grand Tourer, is one of the most beautiful shapes the company ever produced, and unlike a lot of old luxury cars, people genuinely lust after it. That is the crucial ingredient, and it is the one thing you can never fake. A car goes up in value when a growing pool of buyers wants a shrinking pool of good examples, and the E24 has exactly that. A devoted, expanding enthusiast following chasing a finite number of clean cars. Prices for the best ones, and especially the legendary M6 with its motorsport-derived engine, have been climbing for years and show every sign of continuing, as the generation that grew up worshipping the shark nose finally reaches the age and income to buy the real thing. The financial contrast writes itself. A new luxury coupe is one of the worst depreciating things you can buy, a niche, expensive body style in a market that has moved to SUVs, a category that routinely gives back the majority of its value in just a few years as buyers vanish. The E24 is doing the exact reverse, quietly driven upward by pure desire from people who know their car history and refuse to let the good ones disappear. And this is the one on the list you can most genuinely use as a modern classic daily driver. It is a real BMW Grand Tourer, an inline 6, a proper manual on many cars, a driving experience the enthusiast world reveres. It is worth naming why enthusiast demand is such a dependable driver of value, because it is the safest bet on this entire list. Trends come and go, but the people who genuinely love a specific car do not stop loving it. They grow older, wealthier, and more determined to finally own the poster from their childhood wall, and they will pay real money for the best example they can find. That steady, emotional, deep-pocketed demand is what has pulled cars like the E24 upward for years and shows no sign of reversing. Buy a rust-free, mechanically sorted example, and you get the rarest combination in the car world. Something you genuinely love to drive that also quietly grows more valuable the longer you own it, instead of the other way around. So add it all up, and the argument is almost embarrassingly one-sided. On one side, the new luxury car, a machine engineered to lose 40, 50, 60% of its value while you make the payments, taking its steepest dive in the exact years you own it, and handing you nothing at the end but a depreciated trade-in. On the other side, these 5 cars that already paid their depreciation dues decades ago, found their floor and turned upward, held aloft by scarcity, history, and desire, the 3 things no new car can buy. Now, the fine print, because this is an investment argument and honesty matters. This only works on the right examples. A rough, neglected, undocumented version of any of these 5 is a liability, not an asset. The appreciation lives entirely in the clean, rust-free, well-maintained, correct cars. So condition is everything, originality is everything, records are everything, and a proper pre-purchase inspection by someone who knows the specific car is not optional. It is the entire difference between joining the winning side of this trade and buying someone else's expensive mistake. Do it wrong and you own a headache. Do it right and you own something rarer than any new car can ever be. A luxury vehicle that costs you less than nothing to own, because it is worth more when you sell it than the day you bought it. That is the whole secret the showroom will never tell you. New luxury is an expense dressed up as a reward. Old luxury, chosen well, is an asset you get to drive, enjoy, and sell for more than you paid. Tell me in the comments which of these 5 you would put in your garage, and if you want the exact cars I would hunt first with this strategy, the next video on your screen breaks them down. Do the homework. Buy the best example you can find rather than the cheapest, and let time and scarcity do the rest. I will see you there.